All right, you're in for a special treat today. I'm going to do a little sneak peek for those who are early birds. We're in a new location you will readily recognize, and this is Bean. And he gets a window seat in these accommodations, which is a pretty nice vacation for him. So say hello to Bean. And then I'm going to stay up in this little picture-in-picture corner because I'm going to be sharing a screen share. But I'll leave his butt in the picture just in case anyone's curious about the Bean's status. Hello, everybody. My name is Margaret Pendard. I'm a historical fiction writer and eclectic reader. And here on my Booktube channel, I do book tags and I talk about the books I'm writing. And I do reviews and wrap-ups every 2 weeks. And you'll find these things scattered on Wednesdays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific. So try to keep to that schedule so people know when to expect a new live stream. So how y'all doing this Wednesday morning? We're going a bit haywire here in this location. So I went live a bit early and we'll see what we can do. I did just do some tags already this month, but there's a time-sensitive tag, the train tag for March on the Rails. And so I thought I'd do that today because I've been tagged twice in it, and this is the month for March on the Rails. And the nonfiction tag. Apparently, I have a reputation for nonfiction, it seems, in the community. So 2 people tagged me in the nonfiction tag, and those 2 I decided to combine together today for the live stream. So hello. Boom. We're going to start off with the banners, not forgetting, and say hello to the chat. So Jim has a lesson, but sometimes his student cancels, so maybe we'll see him here, maybe not. But he points out that booping the like button is appreciated. Greg is here. Hello, hello. He says, hello, Bean. Julie is here and ready for the tags. Excellent. And Lynn is here. Hello, Margaret and Bean. And you could just say hello to Bean's tail because that's all that we're going to see the rest of the time. Hello, Diane. Welcome, welcome. Listening in today for the trains. And I will say, in my current read, there's a passage about trains that I can share. I can share it now, and then we can talk about it later. I just came across this last night, and I was like, ooh, train passage. Let's see, which one is it? It was a big old passage. There we go. This is a little bit long, but it's a good start. On a certain February evening, Jocelyn waited for the London train at Torminster Station. That is to say, it was known as the London train because people who had left London in the dim past occupied it during the last lap of their journey to the city of dreams. But of what agonies of changes and waits and missing of connections they had passed through before they reached its shelter, they were generally too exhausted to give a coherent account. It was quite dark, and a soft wind was blowing, a friendly, buffeting wind that slapped you on the back in a cheery way, assuring you that winter was over and spring was on the way at last. Jocelyn could almost fancy that the smell of flowers was in the wind, and standing out in the darkness at the far end of the platform, looking at a round green light in the distance, he could think he was walking down the tunnel of winter and coming nearer and nearer to the green light of spring beyond. Through the wind, he could hear the grinding of wheels and see a threaded line of lights winding its way through the valley, that prosaic thing a train transformed by the alchemy of darkness into a jeweled snake. I thought that was a pretty cool image and a nice little tribute to trains in my current read. So we'll finish up as we usually do with discussing current reads, but since that was germane, I thought I'd include it at the top of the live stream. Hey, Shalonda. Hello, hello. Welcome. How are you doing? So I said trains and nonfiction, but then I put nonfiction first with my notes. So we'll do nonfiction first. Let's see. If you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe if you like doing little tags like this. And then we'll start off with nonfiction. So this is a tag created by Mike at Bibliophile Reads. I was tagged by both Jim and Daniela. And so thank you guys for that. I feel very doubly honored. This is 11 prompts in the tag. And the first one is, what originally made you interested in reading nonfiction? Here's the thing. Oh, he left. All right, he left, and he's on a different blanket over here. So we're not going to be able to catch him in the frame anymore. It's all right. He's off the clock. So this came up recently, actually, and I couldn't remember the name of the press that made these hardcover books for children that were nonfiction that went into a big topic and had lots of pictures and lots of little italicized captions about these topics. And I looked and looked and looked, and it was 2 letters, and it was a very recognizable imprint, insignia. And I was like, DM. And then I finally found it by rootling around. They're called DK Eyewitness Books. I don't know if anyone else remembers these, but I found someone else talking about them, and they called them a 90s elementary school library essential. And yeah, so they're like sort of big format, lots of pictures, like double spreads talking about a different thing. Sometimes it was gems or minerals or Middle Ages or insects, like any type of topic, and they'd have a DK eyewitness book, and they're very popular, pretty expensive because they were, really pretty. So I think those are probably my first introduction to nonfiction, because of course I don't count religious books as nonfiction. So there we go. Prompt number 2, do you read nonfiction mainly for curiosity, learning, or enjoyment? And here I would say I read for curiosity because I'm endlessly curious about the world, for learning because even when I'm reading things that I don't set out to learn, I will learn differences, upgrade my understanding, question my beliefs, things like that. So learning is always a good outcome. And I added self-defense because I think many of the reasons why people seek out knowledge is because they don't want to be hurt. And whether you can interpret hurt as being wrong in an argument and experiencing embarrassment, or acting in a way that you don't mean to because you don't know any better. So if you read more about something, maybe you can know better and do better. So yeah, there's a lot of books that I have read that are about self-defense in that sort of wriggly way. Yeah. Oh, and I will just put this underneath the people that I'm tagging in case they come in while I'm reading this. Number 3, what topic could you read endless nonfiction about? And here's where I will pop up this here. So, this is my recently read books on Storygraph. So this is like 4 years, maybe 5 years, 5 years, I think, of books that I've put in, some from my pre-life, but mostly from the last 5 years. And this is filtered for nonfiction. So most recent first. I don't think there's any other useful way of sorting authors, number of pages, pub date, or title. Yeah, nah. So, I mean, this is just to show there's a variety, but there's some definite leanings. I don't know if you can point them out, pick them out, take a wild guess. Anything coming to mind? Anything on the, those actually look very similar. Look at that. Different titles. Colors tend to be similar. So topics I could read endless nonfiction about. Climate science, you might have picked up on. Historical and present day activism. Natural ecosystem mechanics. Basically not just like what a plant looks like, but also what it likes to live next to and what it feeds off of and what insects, require it and how it's part of a big cycle with all these other beings. I read a lot of self-improvement or psychology, kind of like how things work and how we tick. History that echoes down the ages. So things that I feel relate to our present day or maybe relate to revolutions, things I'm studying, my own ethnic background. Craftsmanship in the areas as diverse as textiles, costumes, architecture, gardens, lots of different things that I don't know how to do, but I like reading about other people who have investigated how to do it. And obviously it's not very practical, but I like absorbing other people's expertise. It's very impressive and produces a positive feeling. Let's see. Cookbooks with personal style. So I don't know if I have any of those in this list because I haven't read any recently, but yeah, just give you another look there. And urban planning. So if you look, there's a cookbook. Urban planning. Well, Oxford definitely has some like development of the city. There's another cookbook. Yeah. So yeah, you'll see some interesting nonfiction titles as I scroll back there. Oh, wrong tab. So that is prompt 3. Prompt 4, how do you usually discover nonfiction books? Well, I've got recommendations from friends on Booktube, and that's probably my leading place now, probably tied with podcasts or shows that I listen to, and they're interviewing an author. So a lot of the TV shows that I catch clips of will do this. But also, I thought I'd pick out a couple to recommend to you guys. And there's this one, which is, well, now I forget which one it is. I recently started seeing clips of, and then I watched the full episodes, which are 2 hours long. So you do need a big chunk of time. But Trevor Noah, who used to be part of The Daily Show, is doing a podcast called What Now, where he has a friend who is his backup man, basically like what every late night show host has, which I don't really understand. And then a guest. And so I've tuned into several of these and found them very interesting. I think this might be the one with Josh Johnson. And then the other one, which I mentioned recently, was with Planet Critical. That's hosted by Rachel Donald. And this is the episode with Vanessa Machado de Oliveira of the book that I've been talking about recently called Hospicing Modernity. And it's a great episode if you really want to like question assumptions and back up, kind of like Descartes and his tabula rasa, then you would do well to follow some of her podcasts. I really like those. So there's Planet Critical, and here's the Trevor Noah one. So feel free to click on those. And yeah, so Booktube channels, podcasts. Also like reference sections. So someone was remarking recently that they will look in the bibliography or the works referenced sections in other books. And that is if you were very interested in a subject and aren't afraid of going into the dense academic primary sources, like that's a great place to look for further reading. And sometimes I do that. Let me catch up on the chat to the people who have said hello. Catpaw arrived. Hello, hello. Lynn says, I worked in the railway yards as a laborer for 14 years. Mighty hard labor, I gotta say. Wow. Wow. I don't think we've heard about this. Maybe you need to do the tag. You can probably do it as a blog post on your community tab if you don't want to do a video, but that'd be pretty exciting. Summoned by Talk of Trains. Excellent. Greg, as was I. Yep. Chilanda says, reading for self-defense is awesome. I like that because it resonates with my own reasons for reading nonfiction. Yeah. I think some of it I've had to question the motivation for because I didn't want to be caught in gotcha moments. And I think I've sort of like evolved to be like, okay, so I'm never going to know everything, but I can be well prepared and feel on solid ground when I have my statements to make and stuff. So that's evolved a little bit. Julia says, I own Africa is Not a Country, and I'm looking forward to reading it. Excellent. Yay. Oh, as apologies for any of the like weirdness going on. There's a visitor in the room out there, and there's leaf blowers in the lawn out there. And, I'm just trying to keep on with my schedule and be consistent. So here we go. Hello, Mike. Catching up. DK Books rule. There we go. I'm glad someone else recognized that. So does Trevor Noah, South Africa's most famous export. Yes, I believe you could probably say that. And then Leslie, listening while at work. Hello, hello. Awesome. Okay, so prompt number 5, do you follow authors or topics when choosing nonfiction? All right, I'm going to scroll through a little bit more to see if I can find the 2 that I came up with. There are 2 nonfiction authors that I have read a fair bit of. They don't come up on my most read authors of all time because those are all fiction, unfortunately, the top 8 or whatever they give you in Storygraph. But, not yet. Anyway, it's Rebecca Solnit. I've probably read like 5 of her books over the years. She's written probably like more than a dozen, and probably more like 20 actually, because you count the little ones too. And Robert McFarlane. So Rebecca Solnit is like a radical activist and turned academic and just brilliant thinker. And she has kind of got like a sociological brain. So I like reading her books. And then Robert McFarlane is someone who has studied a lot of like natural historical phenomena and relates them to human history. So the old ways is his favorite one of mine, where he goes to places where humans made pathways. A couple of them are in the UK and one is in the Middle East, and I can't remember the last one. But yeah, so just like thinking about history, thinking about the human effect on the world and how it's shaped our understanding of the world. So I find those really interesting topics. And so they're always on my like, ooh, interested list. Prompt number 6, what nonfiction book stuck with you long after reading? And you've already seen one of them go past. I think I just passed another one. So yeah, this is one of them, How to Kill a City by P.E. Moskowitz. This is gentrification, inequality, and the fight for the neighborhood. And he is talking about most of his examples, I think, are starting in Detroit. That's what I remember. And it's like a blueprint for the most advanced, the most evolved model for gentrification and what has become the norm, which is terrible. But once we know this is how things are evolving and being taken out of um, uh, people who have lived there for a long time, taken out of their hands and redeveloped for billionaires, this is how we can learn how to fight it. So again, like self-defense. So again, this is a while ago, August 2025. Wow, that's not that long ago, but it stayed in my mind for a while, but now apparently it's gone. So this is one of the ones I picked out. And then the other one was The Blue Machine by Helen Chersky. And so that is the one that had the similar cover. And that was a nature book I read for Climathon this year. There we go. And I was really interested to read this one because I don't have a very solid science education foundation. And so when it says how the ocean works, I was like, how does it work? I would really like to know. So basically, it's talking about sunlight temperature affecting the ocean, salt and density of water affecting the ocean, air currents above and ocean currents below. And so basically, levels of the ocean, movement of the ocean, turning of the planet affecting that, and then transpiration from water to air affecting it, and how like it's all this related thing. And like there's just so many interesting places around the oceans that show different aspects of those phenomena. And so she made it really interesting. And I may be unique in this, but Helen Chersky is like the exact tone that I want in a science communicator. So I've read several, I've read two German naturalist authors that I just felt were very condescending. It felt like they were speaking to a child, and I just did knock it on with that. And I've read What the Body Knows, which I think is the narrator was British. And they were just getting way too in the weeds and were assuming that once they said something once, like I understood everything about the cells and the virus and the pieces of the whatever. And it was getting very microbiology. And I was like, you lost me, bud. So between those two, Helen Chersky had like the perfect note of here's how I explain something with metaphors, but also like revisit and build on your understanding slowly. So I just thought that she was great. Prompt number 7, what topic have you learned the most about through books? And I was just like, everything? Because I mean, I'm not the kind of person who will ever claim that I have street smarts. It's basically learning about the world through books and lectures, like people talking about it. I don't have a lot of direct learning experience. I don't go out into volcanoes. I don't, scuba dive. I don't, put things in a microscope. I'm just not a direct absorber. A lot of this doesn't make sense to me unless someone explains it, which could be, a deficiency, but yeah, I'm just not going to be that person in the apocalypse tribe. Hopefully I will have other skills to offer people. So yeah, basically everything. Lynn is asking, do you have a Rebecca Solnit book that stands out? Sorry to say I haven't read a single book of hers, although I always meant to. Oh yeah. So the first book of hers really left an impression. It's called Wanderlust, and it's about travel and walking kind of like the old ways. So they sort of talk to each other, these two authors that I really enjoy. She does shift from topic to topic in a very meandery way. So you'll go into like cathedral building history, and then you'll go into like someone inventing someone, and then you'll go into that person's disagreement in the legal courts, and that'll take you back to something else. And I just really love sort of following this fuse that's going to go off. So Wanderlust is the first one I really love, The History of Walking. I also really liked the Book of Migrations, which I just returned to recently, and it's actually on topic because it is her going back to Ireland. She has part of her family is Irish, but she never really connected to it. So she goes to Ireland and sort of is, welcomed in, but doesn't really know what the parameters are. So it's her discovering this like family legacy, which is interesting. And then she also goes into like a landscape of Ireland and stuff. So it's cool. Alan says, I liked Rebecca Solnit's books on walking. There you go. And Orwell's Roses about George Orwell, which I haven't read yet. That would be cool. And we have a Roy. Hello, Roy reads anything. I haven't watched. I haven't watched, but I saw that you just tagged me in something. So that's on my watch later list. But because of the haywire situation we're in, things are a bit patchy. So, yeah, dogs woke me up at 3 a.m. this morning and I couldn't get back to sleep for a few hours. So there will be a nap later. And yeah, I just have been trying to just limp along as we go. Flexibility. So thank you for that. I'm excited to watch what it is, but I don't know yet. Julie said, my nonfiction favorite genres are historical and memoir biography. Then you'd really like Rebecca Solnit, I imagine. Favorite topics are the Great Plague, like the 16th century plague, or like all the waves, because there were many waves. The Roma, oh, okay. Women's history and indigenous voices. Excellent. And that'll actually come up in a later prompt answer. So yeah, we thinking along the same lines. Cat Paw says, nonfiction that has stayed with me long after reading it, Senseless Acts of Beauty, a culture or cultures of resistance since the 60s by George McKay. Cultures of resistance. That sounds really good. I definitely have heard the phrase senseless acts of beauty, but I'm not sure if it's like originating with this person or what. Sounds good. Duly noted. Awesome. Passing along the recommendations in this circle of life that we have here on Booktube. All right. Prompt number 8. What nonfiction book made you curious about something unexpected? Oh, okay. So Alan knows this one already. It's called Orchard, A Year in England's Eden by Benedict MacDonald. And okay, this is something that I never thought I would be interested in. But the zombie fungus that attacked insects and make them do what they want was crazy talk. So I just found another book that talked about this and I was like, what? So that was just something that I never heard about, never knew about. And like, wow, maybe we have zombie myths for a reason, because maybe this has happened to humans before. This is how we explain things. I just thought that was so cool. So Orchard is a nonfiction book. It's a nature science book, but it's very gentle and not very technical. It's like explaining what happens on an acre or two of untouched orchard land that has been let to go to seed, as it were, not developed. And so they take this little corner and observe things. And they go through the seasons and basically, observe and explain. And it's just very informative and not nostalgic, but the same kind of feeling of like, if we understood this better, we could appreciate it better and we wouldn't need to pave it over, like this sort of like yearning for the Eden in the title, which is, again, not nonfiction, but it's in our DNA, so we'll roll with it. Prompt number 9, what topic would you recommend everyone explore at least once? And here's where Julie's suggestion comes in. So I've only read a couple of these, but I would say an alternate history book. And this was hard to search for because I was thinking there's got to be a reading list of these, right? Because there's a whole bunch that have come out in the past 10 years. When I was in high school, more than 10 years ago, we had Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. And that was the first one, right? So you've got history textbooks that say one way of history. And then you had Howard Zinn's People's History. And what he meant for it was to be a view from the bottom up, basically, like all the little people, the activists who affect change and push the big people in one direction or another, whether that's reform or, what's it called? Not dermatological, demographic change. Things like that. And so, so I had that as a background. And then in the last 10 years, what I've noticed is Indigenous people's history, Black people's history, Afro-Indigenous. There's all these like different lenses from different populations. So, like Julie was saying, women's history, Indigenous history, all these different things. I'm United States centric, of course, so excuse that, but people looking back and thinking, oh, maybe the white male gaze isn't the only one we should take account of because, they're a minority of the population then and now. So might be prudent in George H.W. Nope, George W.'s words. No, that's H.W. That's H.W. I can picture Dana Carvey doing the impression. Okay, so I did find a list of these, if you're curious. There's only a couple of the ones that I've mentioned, but there are some other interesting perspectives. So I found this list of books to read if you love a people's history. So you can check these out for a few of those. Let's see. Julie says, I want to learn more about the 16th century plague, and nonfiction that has stayed with me is The Five. I saw it in your storygraph. I think that might be on my wish list or tagged with someone else's name because I've definitely had it recommended to me, maybe multiple people, but I have not read it. The Five, I believe, is the book that talks about the Jack the Ripper victims, but gives them their due and searches out their background and lives rather than highlighting the serial killers' motivations or whatever, because we don't care about the killer. We should care about the victims' lives as more deserving of attention at this point. Greg says, I really like The Five. Nice. And Cat Paw says to Julie, I wish someone would write a book about life on Doggerland when that was above water in a semi-novel format. Interesting. I think you've told me about this before. I'm trying to remember where it might be. Doggerland. Nope. Nope. It's not in the comments, so I can't help. Maybe you can tell us where it is. Lynn says, Michael Parenti never got the shine he deserved for analyzing systems of power like Zinn did. Okay, there we go. So we got a recommendation for like an alternate history book that should be on that list. That's a great one. Leslie's doing high five for The Five. Yeah. Not to criticize Zinn, of course. Yeah, just passed away a couple years ago. Yeah, I mean, he paved the way, right? That's a long time ago that he wrote that, and now other people get another chop at the tree or a bite at the apple. Prompt number 10, what nonfiction book would you recommend to curious readers? All right, so this is one of my favorites, and a lesser known book because what you come here for is books you've never heard of, right? It's going to be Gathering Moss. I'll look it up here so we can have it front and center. This is by the famous Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's a natural and cultural history of mosses. So again, not a scientist person, but Robin Wall Kimmerer is another great science communicator. She's an indigenous science and communicator, I would say. So she's really great at communicating the worthiness of both strands of knowledge gathering methods. And I love moss. So the fact that she loves moss and she's taking us through these tiny, tiny worlds, how animals use moss, how they work together with other things in their ecosystem. Like I said, the mechanics of ecosystem interdependence, and how people have used moss, like in war versus in modern day things. There's one part that I really remember where she's talking about someone very fancy making up a garden and putting moss in and like ripping it out of the middle of the forest where it was part of a whole community and putting it in to make something look nice in their manicured garden. And she was just like, that's not gonna work. I can't help you with that. Like they were consulting with her and she didn't name names, but it's just like, yeah, you get the feeling like, oh, okay, people who are not careful about where they source things just don't know the damage they're doing and don't care. So yeah, she's like trying to communicate the importance of these things. And I just really, really loved her gentle way of doing that, and sort of subtle, wry, nudge, nudge kind of method. I thought that was great. She's great. And the final prompt is, what nonfiction book would you give someone who says they don't like nonfiction? Oh no. Okay. So for this one, I went with a short story. I'll bring it up here. Nope, it's not going to say it. All right. Science and Nature Writing 2022. There we go. I recognize the cover. All right. So I picked up this. All We Can Save is a book that was edited by Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and Catherine somebody. So I really liked Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson and I started following her and I saw that she edited this collection. I don't normally go for short stories or collections because I like one author and like diving into one author's mind. When I go through many small pieces, it's often hard for me to remember who did what and follow up on ones that I liked and etc. But this one, oh my gosh, guys, 2022's Best American Science and Nature Writing. These are all the people, in case any of these ring a bell. I don't think I knew many of them because they're all, scientists in their field, not people I would know, maybe a couple of them, but they're vastly different areas. And I would never have thought to look up any of them. Let's see if no, I didn't. I didn't put it in my review. But I remember some of it was like snail slime and some of it was like vomit. There was just like random things that were, who would investigate this? But they had a really interesting real life application or reason for being studied. And I was like, what? That's crazy. So just like really engaging that curiosity reflex, which I think a lot of us need help with sometimes. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this book. And I hope that it would give people who are hesitant or think they don't like nonfiction at least a few pieces that they could follow up with and be interested in and awed by or in wonder of, because that's what I love about some of the science and nature writing that I read. So there we go. Okay, Cat Paw helping us here. Doggerland stretched across what's now the North Sea between Great Britain, Denmark, the Netherlands, and northern Germany. Just a couple of really good archaeology docus on YouTube. Oh, cool. Okay. And just like that, Cat Paw sends Julie down yet another rabbit hole. I love it. Excellent. Yeah, so send a couple links and excellent. I'm making connections in the chat. I love it. I love it. So that's the final prompt, and then it was just tag other people. So again, reminding, I'm tagging Daniela at Uncommon Reader, Read Becca, and Literary Layer for the nonfiction tag. I know Read Becca reads plenty of nonfiction, and I know Literary Layer has a few older, like has revisited nonfiction every once in a while. So maybe this will be a good excuse for her to jump back in and like feature a nonfiction tag, which would be cool. And Daniela I tagged because she tagged me in the train tag. And when we move over to that, I will have Jim, who tagged me in the nonfiction tag, be tagged because I just swapped the names of the two tags that I'm doing today, if that makes sense. So a little pause here in the middle. It is March. I have two very big things going on right now. As you can see, I'm on travel. I'm on assignment. It's tax season, so I come down to help my parents. I'm like apprenticing to do the taxes and manage the rentals that we have around where I grew up in the central coast of California. So that is a big deal. It always takes several weeks, and we're starting a little late. So fingers crossed we have a better system this time going forward, and like chop, chop, chop can like run right through all that paperwork because that will be my job. And the second thing is I did a session yesterday, adding half a scene. I have a few final scenes to put in the manuscript. This is my second edit, and I'm sending it off to my developmental editor on Monday. So I finally, like, I'm in the last throes of like, I need to throw this in for things to make sense. Definitely not done, but enough to give to Christy and to say, does this hold together? Is this like a good arc? Is this a satisfying finish for Amelia's book 2 of the Widening Gyre series? So that is the other big project, and I've been working on it for the past 5 weeks or so. Very proud of myself for jumping back into it after a long hiatus. And yeah, just the last few days of trying to, basically there's 2 characters I need to add in and sort of iron out the stuff. So like send the good vibes of coherent thinking, because that's what I need at this last gasp of a stretch. Also, just reminding folks, it is the 25th, so I've got a few more days before the beginning of next month. The beginning of the month is when I send out my bookish mail to my Patreons. So if you would like a bookish postcard in the mail every month, it's $5. You can sign up on YouTube channel memberships or on Patreon as $5 level. So either place, I do the same thing. I send a vintage postcard with just like fun stuff, sometimes stickers, sometimes stamps. International is available too. I have forever stamps for international, and it's the same price. So unless you live in a wasteland like Jim does and your mail is ripped from your hands, or cat paw. So I'm sorry that like I can't reach you guys. It's out of my hands, but you will know best if that is your case or not. And I'm just delighted. I've got almost a dozen people that I send things out to every month, and it's always just nice to check in and just leave positive notes and little fun tidbits about the channel when I send those out at the beginning of the month. So if you would like to be included for that for a month or maybe longer, you can jump on either the channel memberships or the Patreon link, which is in the thing below, the bit.ly link. So just a little reminder that I do that in case you'd like something fun in your mailbox that isn't a bill. Wouldn't we all? Okay, jumping back in. We're on our second tag, and we're past the half-hour mark. So I'm going to try to get this in before the hour closes. The train tag. This is created by Ellen's Reads, and it's part of March on the Rails, which I'm doing this month before it gets away from us. I was tagged by Derek Green and Daniela at Uncommon Reader. So Derek tagged me in both of these, and then Daniela and Jim, I've swapped the tag. So I just thought I was being clever there, but it won't really make sense to anyone else. So I hope they enjoy it. Oh, okay. Julie, I think you have done this through Patreon, and you did it through 2 different addresses. So last month we tried to iron out canceling one, so you're not paying twice for the same thing. I think we worked it out, but I will check again to see if it's canceled. I refunded you last month, so we'll see if you canceled yet this month. Oh, she's not asking me. She's asking Cat Paw. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. Don't mind me. Moving on to the train tag. The train tag is about trains, and each of the 8 prompts is the title of a book, play, or short story featuring trains. Match another book to the prompt Doesn't have to be train related, but bonus points if you can manage that as well. And the hosts of the readathon, which we've got one more week left of, are Alan's Reads, Ghost Raiders in the Sky, Infinite Text, Rainer Read Stuff, and Cliff's Dark Gems. So great job on the readathon. I see a lot of people doing this tag, so obviously you're doing something right. The first prompt is The Great Railway Bazaar. What is a book featuring an epic journey? Okay, and now I'm going to switch over to this tab and share it. So this is all my reads that are sorted by travel. So past 5 years on Storygraph, I've got like almost 2,000 books on there, and I've got 78 that are travel related that have that genre attached to it. And what do we have here? So if we take a little trip through here, we might see some that you recognize, some that you don't. There's the Rebecca Solnit. There we go. There's another Irish book for Irish Readathon. Last Scotland research books, another Irish book, Scottish book. So obviously you can see I have a pronounced direction for my travel destinations. Not a surprise. I would say I have a lot of favorite travel books, right? If you have heard of Mary, Mairi, Hedderwick, sorry. She's an illustrator who is also like a travel hippie, or was. And there we go. Here's one. An Eye on the Hebrides, an illustrated journal. And if I can zoom in there, she's writing a while ago. This is 1991. This is a beautiful graphic illustrated book with little pieces where she talks about like a travel journal, basically. And so she specializes in Scotland. And I looked up these books and got them when I was traveling to the Outer Hebrides. And she made this journey a long time ago, but like it's a similar vibe. It's looking at the wildlife, it's watching the sea and the sky changes. It's meeting people in the back of Beyond and like just having a lovely moment with very simple things. It's getting left behind on the ferry. It's like being delayed by shenanigans. And it's just like a fun travel journal accompanied by these beautiful watercolor illustrations. And I have a piece with Mary Hedderwick. Sorry, I spelled it wrong in my notes. Hedderwick is correct. For a long time now, because I got her address book when I was in Scotland a couple trips ago. So that's always nice. There's like little illustrations on every few pages. And that's like just a happy thing. Let's see. Hi, Andy. Welcome to this double tag. What else? Mary Hedderwick journals. Some of the classic readers might be interested to know. I've read a Hilaire Belloc book. It's called The Cruise of the Nona. There it is. I read this for March of the Modern several years ago. Hilaire Belloc. It sounds like a very French name, but he was a very British travel writer, and I think like satirist, commentator, sort of like a Martin Ames, I don't know, like personality. And so I think 1925. So I think he was famous before this as well. This is a really random, kind of like what Jim was reading, The Voyage of the Beagle. Jim was reading Voyage of the Beagle, and I found that very boring. Cruise of the Nona was also very technical, but I plowed through it because I don't understand any of the nautical terms. It's not train related at all. It's nautical terms that were getting me in this one. And he goes just around the coast, I think the south coast of Britain. And so, Alan, I don't know if you've read this one, and you might be interested to see where he stops. But yeah, I just liked it. It was not my usual fare, but good epic journey. In the age before power motors on boats. Let's see. For the Irish Readathon, my epic journeys would be The Irish Journal by Heinrich Böll. This is a immediately post-war journey by a German travel writer to Ireland, and he sees a lot of poverty and culture mixed in together, and it's an interesting impression that he gets. Full Tilt, which you saw on there by Dervla Murphy. That's Ireland to India on a bicycle. She spends a lot of time in Afghanistan and Iran. So that was an interesting one. and A Book of Migrations by Rebecca Solnit, because she's American, but she's going back to Ireland and talking about that country's history and geology even. So yeah, good Irish readathon hits. I focused on writing my book, so I haven't been as good on the Irish readathon picks, but I'm trying to remember. There was one, I think it's the audiobook that I just finished. Might have been Irish. You'll see. You'll see in the next wrap up, whatever it was. Okay, that was a long first prompt because I love travel literature. Thank you for bearing with me. Second prompt, a brief encounter or still life. A brief or short book you could read while waiting for a train. Okay, so for this one, I think it's actually on the nonfiction list. There we go. Stop. Share this instead. Okay, so we're on the right tab here. It's Intimations by Zadie Smith. Now, I read a Zadie Smith fiction first. It was The Fraud, which is sort of like a interesting pastiche of Charles Dickens' novel plots and characters mixed in with his life and the perspective of a woman who's living with her ex-brother-in-law as his housekeeper and then like having an affair with him. It's an interesting setup, but there are a lot of interesting observations from this main character, and so I was intrigued and I got oh, I should read another Zadie Smith, and this came up from Libro.fm, and so I listened to Intimations, which is a very short, it says 97 pages from 2020, and I listened to it as an audiobook, so not very long. I don't know why it's listed here as the book instead of the audiobook. Anyway, it's just short essays, short pieces, and she's talking about cultural observations, a lot of race matters and women's matters and childhood growing up and observations in society, just like interesting things. Not comedic, but like insightful. And her voice when she's narrating it is just I really like listening to her voice. Her accent is interesting and it sounds to me very detached and technical, but also that a little bit of that wry tone of like asking you to probe your own understanding a little bit more. So I really like this one, and it's very short. Alan says, I haven't read Cruise of the Nona, but I'll have a look. Excellent. Prompt number 3 is Bradshaw's Guide. And I will tell you, I actually had a copy, one of the modern reprints of Bradshaw's Guide, because I just thought it was so cool to have like the actual timetables of the 1880s of all the trains. Then I realized I'm not writing about the 1880s, so I really don't need this. And I think it was like 10 pounds or something. And I either bought it and resold it, or I picked it up and thought about it and then took it out of my basket before leaving the shop. But it was one of those like, I was so close. But I really didn't need it, and I really didn't need to carry it back with me. Bradshaw's Guide, a guidebook to a favorite place or thing. And, I'm actually going to double dip with this one. The prompt number 4 question is Break Heart Pass, a romance novel or Western. And I'm going to do the same one. So I just went through, recently read and looked for guide. And of course, as someone pointed out with Hearthwitch's Guide, it's sort of a bait and switch title because a lot of fiction titles will say blank's guide to blank. And it's not that at all. It's just a very successful title style to attract people's attention. So my romance is actually one of these examples, and it's A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. Let's see if I can go back to the one I'm sharing. There we go. So I read this and loved it. 5-star romance. It's by Sophie Irwin, who I had not read before, and I've been looking for it ever since, but haven't found another book. A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. And basically it's this oldest sister who's trying to salvage the household finances, and she goes to London determined to make a advantageous match so that she can save their home for her sisters and her, and she doesn't care about her happiness as long as she's making it safe for her sisters, which is very noble. But someone else realizes what she's doing and is like, no, I can't let you do that to my brother. And so they get into this like very locked antlers. That's not what I was looking for, but that'll work. Type of confrontation at every social event. And so she's trying to figure out what she can do and is pushed into a corner, right? But then things evolve so that they like have a friendship, these two people who are locked antlers, and they sort of respect each other's motives, but like are still firmly ground in opposition until they move to help each other, and something beautiful develops. And yeah, that's all I will say, because it was really interesting. It was really nice to just ride along and be surprised and laugh at the witty banter. And the side characters were okay. They're very like exaggerated, but that's part of the fun of a historical romance. So I just really appreciated that. And that's going to be my guidebook and romance novel. So 3 and 4. So then prompt 5, Thomas the Tank Engine, a beloved children's book. All right, well, this one was easy. I went through all my recently read, which is all my read books, and looked up children's, and there were very few. There were like 20, so that was easy. It's The Lorax. I'm sure you guys have seen this, right? Not necessarily the book, but definitely the movie. Oh, I'll put who I'm tagging up here. Boom. Okay, so The Lorax is a Dr. Seuss book. If anyone hasn't heard of Dr. Seuss, he's a beloved 1960s era children's illustrator and rhymed text writer, and he's made lots of like classics that people in my generation and after have grown up with. And The Lorax, you might intuit, is the one that talks about treating our earth right. We're in a world where air is sold because the world is too polluted, and the musical version, the animated movie version, is just brilliant. I love the musics, and anyone who has seen it will know that the crowning glory moment is "You greedy dirtbag." So if you know, you know. Just great music and a great moral, which is like, you shouldn't just take. We live in a reciprocal ecosystem where we give and take with our environment. And if you get that out of whack, then you're going to get whacked in the back of the head. So I really appreciate this teaching, and I think more people need it. So yeah, come back and revisit, please. Julie says, beloved children's books, Harold and the Purple Crayon. Yay. I actually hadn't read that as a kid, but I read it as a 30-something, and it was good. And then Curious George, which I did read as a kid, but didn't get as into. So yeah, those were nice though. Those are good picks. Prompt number 6, The Signalman, which is a ghost story or horror novel involving a train. This is one of the Victober reads last year. Again, I looked up horror in my recently read, and it came up with like 20 something books. Not very many. I'm not a horror reader, but I will say that this one I can recommend. I did it as a buddy read a couple years ago with my editor, and she's a horror writer. So it was a good person for me to match up with. That is The Coffin Path by Catherine Clements. And it's a very atmospheric, very tense, very creepy. There's a little bit of gore on the page. So I had to, bite down on the leather thong for that and get over it. But The Coffin Path is set in Yorkshire. It's set in Victorian times. And, there's some messy animal stuff. So if that's going to make you blanch, then I would say you can stay away. But horror that I could actually get through and was just really well done. So I appreciated that. Of its ilk, let's say. Definitely still not my genre. Part number 7, Strangers on a Train, a new book that you hope to read this year. It doesn't have to be published this year. So I had a project at the end of last year that I thought would be not that hard, but apparently it was too hard. It was pre-orders, right? Because I know that pre-orders are really useful, especially to indie authors and indie bookstores, because they can anticipate the demand, meet it, and have happy customers, and then, tell their authors that they're a good place to sell from. So I tried this for a couple months, and it was just really hard to find pre-orders in paperback. And I'm not going to be ordering pre-orders in hardcover. We don't have that kind of money. So pre-orders in paperback sometimes are released with the hardcover, sometimes are released a year later, sometimes in between, sometimes never. So reading all these lists of new releases, it was very hard to see which ones were available. So I had to abandon the project as taking too much time to research. But I did get a handful of pre-orders, and there was only one left that I have not read, and that is this one. So I haven't read this author before. It's Julie Leong, and the book is called The Keeper of Magical Things. And I got this from the Last Bookshop of LA. And as you can see from the cover, probably, it's a cozy fantasy, meaning that there are low stakes, there's like self-discovery, there's a slice of life, kind of daily life, world building, which is very gentle. So I think Magical Innkeeping is the first book in the world or the series, but they're standalone. So I got this one because it was just coming out, and it looked like a nice read. So that is one that I'm thinking I should read that this year. That'd be good. Finish out that project. Let me check in with the chat. Are we still good? Yes. Okay. Prompt number 8, The Mystery of the Blue Train, a book with a color in the title or on the cover. All right. And then for this one, I'm going to go with one of my favorite books to recommend, which I haven't read in a while, but it's very unusual as a topic. And so I try to recommend it where I can. It's called The Women of the Copper Country by Mary Doria Russell. Now, Mary Doria Russell is a historical fiction author extraordinaire. She's written many different eras, settings, characters that will take someone who's like a radical activist and make them very sympathetic, so that you learn about a new cause, you learn about a new oppressed group, as it were. And this one, she is in Michigan in like 1906, 1912, somewhere in there. And there is a big strike there where it was like the area was monopolized by a certain mine owner, copper mine, and they were really under the thumb. It was basically like the town outside Chicago, which I can't think of right now because it's been too long since I did that research, but someone who has the company town, they have all the marbles, they have all the chips, and the people who are working for there have no collateral. They're lucky to work there, as it's portrayed. And so this is the story of the terrible conditions and emotional damage that does to people, and someone who tried to rise up and fight against it, who was a woman, who was a wife of one of the miners, and the rebellion that she led and how far it went. And it's a historical event. So we don't know much about this woman because she was super famous for a short period of time and then sort of vanished. She didn't die, but she just like vanished from the headlines. So I just thought this was a really great way for Mary Doria Russell to pick a person out of history and a time of resistance and collective action out of history that most people don't know about, and give us something to look back to and say, oh well, they did it. I mean, I think we can do that sort of action again. And just to remind people, this weekend, if you're in the United States or if you're around the world, it's No Kings 3, which means we're going to be gathering to resist the would-be king in the United States and tell him to fuck off. So if you share those sentiments, I hope you will be able to find a march or gathering in your community and go and make some new friends. Just go and feel good with other people who are also not okay with what's going on. because that's a good feeling to go and just be with other people, because oftentimes we're very isolated and think we're alone in our thinking or can't do much. But when you see a lot of people gathered together who are all angry and will not stand for something, it just gives you a little more confidence to speak out, a little bit more feeling like you're not alone, which is always useful in these days when we're so atomized in society. So, No Kings 3, March 28th, Saturday. Find your local and don't be afraid to plant your flag, make a sign. It's very easy and it's pretty fun. Lots of good ones to choose from. All right, and then tag others. And as you can see on the scroller here, I'm tagging Mike at Riff Raff Reads, Ven at Ven's Book Corner, and Jim at Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff. And unfortunately, I put a Q in there. Sorry about that. It's a little typo. But yeah, so that is the fun double tags that I did today. Let's turn that off and then do a little chat about the current reads. Kappa says, okay, I'll bump the Women of the Copper Country up my to-read list. Mary Doria Russell's writing is usually excellent and really draws you in. Yeah, and the thing is, The Sparrow, and there's another, I think there's 2 books actually where she has a Jesuit priest who's somehow involved like as a scientist, and I just like really, do I get into that? Do I trust her enough to go into like a priest as a main character? I don't know. It's a little dicey, so I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I think I have one other of her books to read, and then maybe I'll jump into that one. But I've heard good things. It's just, personally speaking, it's hard. Color in the title, The Scarlet Letter. That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you for doing the train tag. Yeah, I think you guys have been so successful getting people to do it during the month, which is great. And I usually don't do them for like 9 months later. So you got me. You got me. So the passage that I read earlier with the train mention is from A City of Bells by Elizabeth Goudge. She's a modern classic writer. I think this is from the 20s, 30s, 1936. And this edition is from 1960. And I got it when I was in Canada, in Vancouver, last fall. So that was fun. And I wondered if there was anyone who made a reference to this and had a bookstore called Jocelyn Irvin Books, but I searched and I didn't find one. So that's a shame. That would be a good name for a bookstore. I'm reading this and I'm putting tabs in it because there's a lot of interesting places. Elizabeth Goudge's writing style is very earnest and very naive feeling. It's like a time of writing from bygone days where people were actually like wistful and earnest. And if you're in the mood for that, this is just a great escape. But if you don't like that kind of writing, it's really going to turn you off. So it's a recommendation for some. If you know that you're that kind of person, then you'll definitely love this type of book. I've read a couple other books by Elizabeth Goudge and really appreciate them for that quality. And also, this is set in a fictional town of Torminster that is based on Wells, which I mentioned on my last stream. And other Laura mentioned that she lives near Wells, which is pretty cool. So I've never been in that part of England, but maybe I will in September. I'm still trying to choose like Cornwall, Devon area, trying to figure out where is best to install for like a few days. Cat Puss says, yes, The Sparrow was what got me hooked on SF. It's not science fiction. Oh, it is science fiction because there's a scientist. Oh, right. Okay. It's historical fantasy, I think, more than science fiction. But yeah, definitely like a genre mashup. So the fact that she could do that and have people love it is really a testament to her writing. We got the Choo Choo Train. Mike says, I doubt if South Africa will do a No Kings, but I'll march around my yard in solidarity with you all. Much appreciated. What's I think the greatest part is the signs. It's kind of like political cartoons. Everyone has their own humor. Some are repeated, right? But you just make other people laugh, and laughter is one of the most, I think, the best ways of bonding. And people realize, oh, you're seeing the reality and you're acknowledging the reality in this world that is turned upside down. So very helpful for keeping people sane. And then Lynn says, here for showing up physically to support a cause. Yay! Excellent. I'm glad. Besides City of Bells, I have one other book that I am listening to. I just started yesterday. It's called Sisters in the Wind. It's by Angeline Bully, who is a Indigenous author. It's the third in her world that started with Firekeeper's Daughter. I have read Firekeeper's Daughter. I have read Warrior Girl Unearthed. Those take place, and this one is taking place in between. And what I just figured out when reading an interview is that she's doing one for each element. So we got fire, we've got earth, and now we're in the air, Sisters in the Wind. And this one is about Indigenous kids in the foster system, and it's already like really intense. It's pulled me right in. I've done some reading on the foster care system and how it's overlaid with the Bureau of Indian Affairs terribleness. I don't know what the word I'm trying to use is, but like the nefarious activities of that department, let's say, its origins, and continues to fail at its objectives in a lot of ways. So that's really pulling me in. It's a mystery, and we've already had an explosion, and I'm 24% of the way through. So like really good stuff. She's a great writer too. So I'd recommend that one. I know Rachel didn't like the one that I recommended, didn't get along with Firekeeper's Daughter, something, but not everything's going to work for everyone, but I appreciate when people take me up and then let me know if it did or didn't work. That's always good feedback. So I'm losing my voice. It is still haywire around here. We still have a guest that I should probably go out and talk to now that it's been an hour. So thank you very much for joining me, as usual, on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific for a double tag today. Thank you very much for those who tagged me. And I look forward to the 6 people that I tagged, seeing if you do those tags. Again, no time pressure. I often take 9 months to do a tag. So whenever you get to it, just tag me, and then I'll be excited to go see your version and see which books you chose. Yep. Thanks for watching. Thanks for reading. Take care of yourselves, everybody. It's getting warm. So remember to hydrate, remember to rest, and diversify that reading list. And take care, everybody. All right, last chat. This was awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Mike's laughter also punctures the king's ego. Excellent point. Yes. On se moque de lui. Yes, yes, yes. Salut. Bye, Lynn. Oh, Jim's just coming in. So, Jim, you'll see you're tagged in the other tag. So, have fun with that. And Shalanda, thank you. Great to be part of your life. Thank you so much for staying. That's awesome. All right. Have a great week, everyone. We'll see you on Friday. Ciao, ciao.